I left the door unlocked. I thought I was alone. But then, he knocked. And what he said, what he wanted, shattered every line I thought I'd never cross. I froze. And then, I let it happen. I never thought I'd be saying this out loud. Honestly, I don't even know how to begin. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. A stormy one, yes, but quiet. My ex-husband had planned to take our son on a short trip, some last-minute bonding before the school year picked up again. I had already packed his bag, double-checked the meds, even slipped in his favorite snacks. But plans changed, as they always seem to do when you're desperately craving space. My son ended up leaving with his dad, but my stepson, Tyler, stayed behind. He wasn't supposed to. He was only meant to stop by and grab a few things. But when the rain started pounding the windows and the power flickered out, he texted and said, "The roads look bad. Mind if I just crash here?" And I, foolishly, innocently, said yes. I should have known better, not because he's a bad kid, not because anything had ever happened before, but because I was alone. And lonely, and so was he. I didn't plan for what happened. I didn't even let myself imagine it. But now, after that night, I can't unsee what I saw. I can't unfeel what I felt. And worst of all, I can't undo what I let happen. So here I am, telling strangers what I can't even admit to myself. Because something changed in that storm. And I'm not sure who I am anymore. It's not like I haven't been alone before. I've been divorced for 2 years now, and the silence doesn't scare me the way it used to. But that weekend, it felt different. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your skin itch. The kind that reminds you what you're missing. I'd just restocked the fridge, fluffed the pillows, lit a candle in the living room like I always do on nights when it rains. It made me feel like I was keeping some kind of warmth alive. Pretending, maybe. Tyler wasn't supposed to stay long. He was just stopping by to pick up the last of his things. But the sky cracked open like it had something to say, and the power blinked out like it agreed. He texted me from the driveway. "Storm's getting bad. Mind if I stay?" I told myself it was harmless. I even smiled a little. I missed the sound of someone else's footsteps in this house. I didn't think twice. Looking back, that was the moment everything shifted. Not when the rain started. Not when the lights went out. But when I said yes. Tyler brought in his bag, shook off the rain, and muttered thanks as he stepped inside. I handed him a towel and made a light joke about him looking like a half-drowned cat. He smiled, not the polite kind, the real kind, the kind I hadn't seen in a long time. I made tea for both of us. We sat in the living room with the soft glow of candles flickering on the table between us. No TV, no background noise, just the storm tapping against the windows like a quiet warning. At first, we barely spoke. Then it turned into one of those rare, gentle conversations, the kind that only happen when the power's out and your phones are dead. We talked about nothing, but it felt like everything. He asked me if I was happy living alone. I told him I didn't know, that some nights I felt free, and others, hollow. He looked at me for a long moment, like he wanted to say something but bit it back. I noticed the way he listened, the way he leaned in just slightly when I spoke. He wasn't the awkward teenage boy I used to know. He was thoughtful, present, almost aware. And maybe that's what scared me. Because in that stillness, I felt something shift between us. Not loud, not sudden, just a silent crossing. Like two people drifting a little too close in the dark. And neither of us pulled away. The power cut out completely around 10:30. 1 second we had soft candlelight and the distant hum of the fridge. And the next, just darkness. Deep, full, the kind that makes you hold your breath for no reason. I lit another candle and brought it into the hallway. Tyler followed behind me quietly, carrying the extra blanket I offered. "Guest room's still cold," I said. "That side of the house never holds heat." He nodded, but didn't move toward it. "Honestly," he said, hesitating. Do you mind if I sleep out here? Closer to the fire? Of course, I said without thinking. I'll grab a pillow. But the guest blankets were still damp from the humidity. And the wind had picked up, howling through the trees like a warning. Without asking, I said, my bed's warmer, just for tonight. His eyes met mine for a second too long. We didn't say anything else. Upstairs, the bed felt too large, too warm, too intimate. I turned away from him, pretending to check my phone even though there was no service. He settled in on the far edge, respectful, quiet, but the silence buzzed louder than any storm outside. Sometime after midnight, I stirred. I don't know if it was the cold or the quiet or something else entirely. But I shifted slightly, and my foot brushed his. Lightly, accidentally, maybe. I didn't move it, and neither did he. A minute passed, maybe more. And then I felt it, his hand, slow and unsure, rest gently over mine in the dark. I didn't pull away, I didn't speak. And in that stillness, everything changed. I should have moved, I should have said something, made a joke, pulled away, laughed it off, but I didn't. I just let his hand rest on mine. It was warm, steady, unspoken. Minutes passed, the room swallowed in shadows. I couldn't hear the storm anymore, just the quiet between us, that impossibly loud, aching quiet. Then, slowly, his fingers laced through mine. I still said nothing. My heart beat so loud I thought he could hear it. I turned my head just slightly, eyes still closed, pretending to be asleep, but I wasn't. I was awake, more awake than I'd been in years. He shifted closer, not enough to touch, just enough to feel. The space between us shrank to almost nothing, and I could feel the warmth of his breath in the dark. Are you okay? He whispered. I nodded, barely. Then I turned toward him, finally opening my eyes. And he was there, watching me, not in that innocent, boyish way I remembered, but in a way that said he saw me, really saw me. I whispered, this probably isn't a good idea. He didn't respond. He didn't have to. Because I didn't stop him when he leaned in. And when his lips brushed mine, tentative, soft, trembling, I let them stay. It wasn't a kiss, not really, more like a question. And my answer was silence. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. We stayed there, forehead to forehead, breath tangled. Still unsure, still trembling, but no longer pretending. We'd crossed something that night. A line, a moment, maybe even a part of ourselves we didn't know was waiting. And there was no going back. I didn't plan to move closer. I didn't even think about it. But somehow, we ended up there, his hand resting lightly on my hip. My forehead tucked beneath his chin like we'd done this before. Like it was safe, like it was normal. It wasn't. God, it wasn't. And still, I didn't stop him. I wish I could say it was a moment of weakness, that it was brief, that it was a lapse. But the truth is, it was something deeper than that. It was the way my skin burned where his fingers brushed. The way he breathed my name like a question he didn't want answered. The way I responded, not in words, but in motion. Slow, careful, desperate. When our lips met again, it wasn't like the first time. This time, I kissed him back. It was wrong, every inch of it wrapped in guilt and hesitation. But in that moment, guilt didn't scream, it whispered, softly, from the corner of the room. And I didn't listen. His hands were trembling, unsure, reverent, as if touching me was some kind of sacred ritual he didn't feel worthy of. And somehow, that reverence made it worse. It made me feel wanted, needed, alive. The silence between us turned to breath, to movement. Every touch asked a question I didn't dare speak out loud. Is this okay? Do you feel it too? Are we already too far gone? When it ended, if you can even call it an ending, we lay there in the dark. Hearts racing, backs turned, eyes wide open. Neither of us said a word. Because there was nothing left to say. The storm outside had passed. But the one inside me was just beginning. And I knew, even as I lay perfectly still beside him, that something irreversible had taken root. I woke before the sun. The room was still dark. But the air had changed. He was still beside me, breathing slow, curled on his side, but the warmth between us had vanished. And suddenly, I felt cold. Not from the weather, not from the room, but from within. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake him. My heart was pounding, but not in the same way it had the night before. This wasn't adrenaline. It was shame, regret, fear. The weight of what had happened pressed down on my chest like a boulder I couldn't lift. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and crept downstairs, hoping the routine of coffee would offer comfort. But even the smell, normally so grounding, felt hollow. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe that he would leave without saying anything. Maybe that he'd act like it never happened. Maybe that I could. But when he came downstairs, hair still messy from sleep, eyes searching mine, it hit me. This wasn't going away. He sat across from me at the kitchen table. We didn't speak. The silence was thick and uneven. A different kind of storm. He opened his mouth once, then closed it, then looked away. I wanted to say something comforting, something responsible. But all I could think was, what kind of mother does this? He finally whispered, "Are you okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't. I didn't even know what "okay" meant anymore. I couldn't look at him the same way. Not because I was disgusted, but because a part of me didn't want to let go. That was the worst part. We went through the motions that morning like two strangers with a secret carved into their skin. I cleaned the kitchen. He packed his bag. But under every movement was a question neither of us dared ask. Now what? For the next few days, Tyler kept his distance. He stayed in his room mostly, only coming out for food or the occasional chore. No more shared glances, no more accidental touches, just space. Exactly what I thought I wanted. But space didn't fix anything. If anything, it made it worse. Because with space came silence. And silence gave every thought room to grow into something monstrous. I kept replaying it, that night, his voice, his breath, the way his hand had found mine without hesitation, the way I'd let him, welcomed him. And still, I missed it. I missed him. And I hated myself for that. Each time I heard his footsteps upstairs, my heart tightened. Each time I saw the bathroom door closed, steam curling from beneath it, I caught myself staring too long, imagining too much. What the hell was wrong with me? One afternoon, I found him in the backyard, sitting on the edge of the deck, staring out at the trees. I stood in the kitchen for a long time just watching him. Debating. Eventually, I walked out, sat beside him. Neither of us spoke, not right away. Then, softly, he said, "You don't have to be afraid of me." I looked at him, really looked. He wasn't pushing, he wasn't hinting. He was hurting, just like me. "I'm not afraid of you," I whispered. "I'm afraid of what we've done. And what we might still do." He nodded slowly. "I think about it all the time." I did too. Every second. We were living in limbo, pretending distance was healing while the ache between us grew louder. I wanted to tell him it was over, that it had to be. But instead, I just sat there, quietly hoping he'd say it first. I thought we were being careful. No more late nights, no more touching, no more lingering in the same room longer than necessary. We were polite, distant, measured. But guilt doesn't vanish just because you behave better. It clings. It changes the way you move, the way you look at each other, the way you flinch when the phone rings. One afternoon, Olivia, my ex-husband's longtime friend, stopped by the cabin unannounced. She claimed she was checking in, said she happened to be driving nearby. But the moment she stepped inside, I felt it. She knew something. Maybe not everything, but something. She lingered too long in the hallway, glanced toward the stairs, made an offhand joke about teenage boys and their hormones that landed like a warning shot. And then, just before leaving, she said, "You might want to check the batteries on that old camera above the bookshelf. Never know what it might have picked up during a storm." I froze. That camera hadn't worked in years, or so I thought. After she left, I stood in the living room staring at it, pulse racing. I couldn't breathe. Tyler came down the stairs, asking if everything was okay. I couldn't answer. Because suddenly, it wasn't just about us anymore. It was about who else might have seen. Who might already be watching. And what they could do with it. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind scrape against the windows like it was trying to say something I wasn't ready to hear. Tyler was in his room, door shut, lights off. We hadn't spoken since Olivia left, and maybe that was safer for both of us. But my mind wouldn't stop spinning. What if the camera had recorded something? What if someone saw the way he touched my hand? The way I didn't pull away? What if my ex found out? What if he already knows? I thought the hardest part would be the night it happened. But I was wrong. The hardest part is every moment after, pretending it didn't. He's not just my stepson. He's still a kid, really, barely figuring out who he is. And I'm the adult. I should have known better. But when you've been invisible for so long, and someone finally sees you, not as a mother, not as a placeholder, not as background noise, but as you, it changes you. And I hate myself for how much I miss being seen like that. So I'll ask you, if you were me, if you had been that lonely, that seen, that wanted, would you have said no? If the only time you felt truly alive was in that moment? Because that's what I'm still asking myself. Every single night.